been convicted of a crime?
Yes.
What was the crime of which you were convicted? Did you in fact commit those acts?
I'm going to invoke my Fifth Amendment right.
Privacy was very important to Giuffre.
My sources tell me that somebody from British intelligence came through the vents.
Through the vents? What do you mean by that?
Through the vents in the cell.
Please state your full name.
Same answer. I'm Jeffrey Edward Epstein, and my residence address is 6100 Red Hook Boulevard in Virgin
Do
Islands.
you have any evidence to suggest otherwise?
The CIA was using children to compromise pedophile politicians.
Have you ever solicited a minor for prostitution anywhere at any time?
Again, I'm going to assert my right.
What'd you study?
Physics.
Mr. Epstein built little cabanas and beach houses all across the island.
66 different days that he violated his probation. He would go to the airport, jump in his helicopter, who knows where he went.
Yes, I report back to jail at 8 p.m.
Every single day?
Yes, sir.
Conspiracy, witness tampering, prostitution, blackmail, extortion, you name it.
Their goal is to cover this up.
Is it true, sir, that you have what's been described as an egg-shaped penis?
No, in fact, the Supreme Court recently said that the Fifth Amendment right is there to protect the innocent. So that's the way I'd like to answer that.
Talk about Jane Doe 102, Virginia Roberts.
What's the last name? How's it spelled?
Do you know Virginia Roberts?
So she's, again, who?
They're untouchable. So I understand people saying, why didn't you just go to the cops?
Prosecuted for these crimes.
Right.
Isn't that right?
They did.
Objection, argument.
Didn't matter. He owned the cops.
And calls for a legal conclusion.
Can you spell it? Can you spell it for me, please?
What is up, folks? This is Addy Ads, and this is the Epstein Files. And we got a great guest on the show tonight. We've had her on a couple times before, and I've actually had her on, or she's had me on her show a few times over the course of the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, where Roberta Glass of the Crime Report and myself connected for the first time. And since then, it's been a great working relationship. We've connected on true crime, geopolitical corruption, and our work has a lot of overlap. So I think we've been able to teach each other a lot of stuff, and it's great to have Roberta on the show again. Thanks for coming on again, Roberta, and being flexible with the timing here, as I'm always on the move.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I never get tired of your opening. It's so good. And when Epstein says, I consider the Fifth Amendment an admission of innocence, Amanda Knox says almost the exact same thing. She said, I'm not going back to court. This is before they gave her exonerating decision that she was there at the scene of the crime and she washed Meredith Kercher's blood off her hands. That was the decision that let Amanda Knox walk. That's her exonerating decision. Before she got that, she said, I'm not going back to court because I consider that an admission of innocence. And there you have Epstein sitting there so arrogant saying, I consider my taking the Fifth Amendment an admission of innocence. So anything that I do it's just, it's really satanic. I mean, in the truest sense of the word, meaning taking something that you would infer to mean one thing and making it mean the opposite, saying it means the opposite, and kind of a little bit of mind control there. Wouldn't you? I don't know what else you could call it, but just the way he scratches his chin and you're watching Maxwell. What was that from? She was presenting, was that for her Terra Firm thing? Was she presenting?
Yeah, that was for Terramar. She did, she kind of made the media rounds a bit for the Terra Mar project. You know, she's on CNN. She went to the UN several times. She presented before the United Nations. It's insane. But you know, you mentioned Amanda Knox, and maybe we can get into that tonight. It was unplanned, but I would like to, because
Sure.
that was a case that confused me when I was growing up. I don't know why.
Me too. For years.
Yeah.
For
And
years, I read
let's
everything I could. I would
let's
just
do
go,
that.
I don't know.
Let's take a left turn here.
don't know.
Let's
Yeah.
talk Amanda Knox before we get into Epstein and Maxwell and
Sure.
stuff. So the only reason that I was hung up on that verdict was I was like, she's a young, attractive Caucasian woman. Why would they want to frame her? You know, it didn't make any sense to me. I was like, you know, that was the only thing really that had me hung up. But
Right.
maybe
But
you can enlighten people.
I was hung up in the same way, because her father hired a PR firm before he hired a lawyer.
Oh wow! Isn't
And
that's what the Ramseys did, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of people,
And
a lot of these murderers that I
McCann's
talk about,
McCann's did too, I think.
they were given a PR person by the British government. That I'm talking about the McCanns again on my show, because that's just
I
an
just talked to
endless
Sonia
wealth.
Poulton the other day, and she's done I think a documentary.
She's great on the McCanns.
Yeah,
that's a good piece of work. She did great work on the McCanns. Yeah. Oh, I'll have to check that out. I'll be looking for that, because she's done fantastic work on that case. And so he said he hired Gogorty Marriott, depending on who you're talking to, the PR firm, and he said it was the smartest thing we did. And so they immediately started putting out disinformation. And the way I heard about the case is I was working at Oprah, and I got some communication from someone, and Lord knows if it was from a PR firm now or someone really who was pretending to be either a relative or a friend, and they wrote their version of the case, the PR talking points. And the way they made it sound was, first they talked about the underwear that it was written in the Italian press, and this is something that's kind of been forgotten from the case, that she went out with her boyfriend, Raffaello Solecito, and bought sexy lingerie and after the murder, and you on the CTV footage holding it up and talking about it and laughing. And all her friends she also didn't go to Meredith Kercher's memorial service. The entire town is there, and she's off eating pizza with her boyfriend. Just very, it's not the end all be all, but they said, oh, well, people misunderstood. She couldn't get into her house. So she bought this dollar underwear at one of these places that had bins in front of it in Italy. And I thought, well, that makes sense. She couldn't get into her house. It's a crime scene. She bought cheap underwear, and the press ran with it and said she was buying almost everything in that letter turned out to be untrue. But the thing that kind of made me wonder, well, how do these people who don't know each other, anytime you have a gang murder, it's very hard to imagine. And they take advantage of that in her case. They really went with that. How could she, with her boyfriend, do a crime like this when she just met him? Well, my theory on it is that when psychopaths meet, it's on very quickly. So, and the way she's carried herself, it's made her famous and rich. I mean, she got $4 million from her book. Those Son of Sam laws were challenged by Henry Hill. He's dead now, but he wrote the book Wise Guys that became the subject of the movie Goodfellas. He was a mobster, low-level mobster, and his publisher went to the courts and said, we want him to profit from his book. And they said he has a First Amendment right, which doesn't to express. Criminals, murderers have a First Amendment right to not only express themselves, but get paid from it.
Do you disagree with that?
Yes, because I think if you can't vote, that's the biggest First Amendment right you have. If you're a felon, a lot of times, depending on which state you live in, you can't vote. So I mean, you can express yourself, but profiting, I would put that in a different category than self-expression, profiting. He can write all the books he wants, but profiting? And that's a big problem with one of the reasons why I kind of turned my feelings about the death penalty is because these psychopaths continue to abuse people from behind bars. And it goes on and on. I mean, we have Julius Jones making $18,000. No, not making it, sending it out. And not in just the past couple of years. That's crazy. He's on death row and he's making $18,000. I mean, he's sending out $18,000. He's designing sneakers. I mean, we're in the age of a celebrity murderer where we're lionizing psychopaths and murderers and rapists and killers. I find it very weird.
Can you explain that Jones case briefly for those that don't know it?
Julius Jones, it's an Oklahoma case, was a young African-American man. The way they framed it was he was this honor student. Well, he was, but when he got to college, things went downhill very quickly, and he got into robbing, carjacking with his friend. And he was looking for this car. He basically stalked Paul Howell, who was a single father with 2 young girls. And he had just taken his young girls shopping for school supplies and bought them ice cream. And Julius Jones followed with his friend, followed Paul Howell to his home, opened up the door. The little girl waved to him. His daughter waved to him when he's about to carjack Julius Jones, when he's about to carjack Paul Howell. He doesn't ask him for the car, ask him for the keys, anything. He opens up with shooting him in the head. And then they drove over his body as they got away for a car that was, worth a couple $1,000. And he was a big push to test the DNA in that case for the Innocence Project because he wore a bandana to hide himself. So they tested the bandana years and years later. And that's one of their famous tricks in the Innocence Project. So if it's incomplete DNA or a partial DNA, or it's just not there because it's too degraded, or it's just not there because DNA isn't always there, they'll say that's a sign of innocence. Forget everything else. Forget all the other evidence we have. No DNA or a partial DNA that will never be matched to anyone. So it became a big political thing. They were saying they made the Innocence Project lawyers, 2 of them, went to ABC with 2 projects about death row cases. One was Darlie Routier, and the other one was the Julius Jones case. And they produced their own propaganda. ABC aired it and made money off of it too, with this big case of innocence. Julius Jones, this wonderful student. I mean, he was totally, I think, had like a D- average. I think it was like not even a 1.0 average, or it's like 0.48 average, something crazy like that. Forgive me for not remembering it off the top of my head, but he was no honor student at the time of this murder, and they pushed to get him off death row. One of the things, they got a governor who's obviously taking money from this movement. He passed a very pro defendant friendly law about snitches before this. And then he put all these people on the pardon and parole board. One named Adam Luck, who did a TED talk where he said, all incarceration is a form of slavery and is terrible, and let's get people out. He also has his own charity that he makes money from working with prisoners. And he said, and he retweeted one of Kim Kardashian's Free Julius Jones tweets 2 years before, maybe 4 years before Julius Jones, 3 or 4 years before Julius Jones ever came before him on the pardon parole board. And they tried to get him to step down. He said, oh no, I can be impartial. And it was a shit show. I'm sorry, Addie, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear. I hate to swear, but it was so disturbing, this pardon parole board hearing. Julius Jones told one lie after another. The family was there and gave the pardon parole board a list of questions to ask them. Adam Luck just kind of waved the victim's family, Paul Howell's family, off like they were just annoying. It was awful. It was absolutely disgusting. I got the opportunity to get to know and interview Julius Jones's lawyer, and even he found the documentary disgusting. And Julius Jones's Innocence Project affiliated lawyers, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but the essence of it is very unethical and very sleazy, was the impression I got from that interview. It's up on my channel and you can listen to it. So
Okay.
Anyway, so basically the governor at the last minute, because Donald Trump called, commuted Julius Jones's, when it was 2 hours before execution, commuted his sentence to life without the possibility of parole. They're still trying to get him out. Oh, when they retested the DNA, it came back with his DNA on it. They don't like to, supporters don't like to talk about that. But that's just one of many of the Innocence Project's clients where they test the DNA, they push, and they said this is going to be this exonerating thing. They test it, it comes back with their client's DNA, and they keep pushing innocence. They never say guilty. They never give up on a client. They don't really care. It's not really about innocence or guilt to them. This is an anti-incarceration movement, and they don't believe in that these kind of people, killers, should be in prison for these long stretches of time. So a real innocence campaign doesn't start till about 14 years in, meaning they've gone through quite a few appellate courts. So
right.
Yeah. These aren't closed cases, you know what I mean?
During the carjacking, did the children survive?
Yes, but he shot at the children and Paul House's sister. So he was happy to kill them too as they ran into the house. The sister was a costumer, and she remembered her memory. I mean, I'm the perfect person to commit a crime in front of. I will remember nothing. You know, visually. I maybe auditory. I tend to remember things better that way, but I'm the perfect person.
I'm actually
this
the same
woman
way.
remembered everything visually about what happened. It's also a traumatic memory. She said, I just swept up the girls and we ran in the house, and he fired shots at us. He told us to stop and fired shots at us.
The other question I was going to ask is, do you think the state actually cares if someone is innocent or guilty?
Yes.
You do?
Yes, I do.
Why is that?
Because if they're going to... It depends on who the prosecutor is. There's a DA, because if they don't care, they become a defense attorney. That's where the money is. You wouldn't stay being a prosecutor making a couple $100,000 a year when you could become a defense attorney. I don't think they're prosecuting people for fun. It's a lot of work, and as you can see, we have all these new DAs who are in New York, LA, who aren't prosecuting anyone. I mean, Gascon, LA is under investigation because he refuses to prosecute anyone. We have
the Baltimore DA just got federal charges like 3 weeks ago. Did you see that?
No, send it to me. Yeah, I'll look.
Yeah,
I'll
I think it was a Baltimore DA. It was a woman. I can't remember her name, but yeah, she got some federal charges for. I can't remember what it was, but
yeah. I mean, there are bad DAs. And there's definitely, it seems like we have one in New York right now, Bragg. And that office just seems like a mess. But there's a DA.
I think they want to make it seem like it's a mess. That's what I think.
Well, he goes, oh, well, now we're gonna switch back the law that I changed myself, making it not a felony anymore to rob a place of business, or I think with a gun or a knife. I think it's not even just a place of business, rob anyone with a gun or a knife. Now we're going to change that back. So now it's back to a felony. But never mind the theft under 1,000. That still goes. People are still running into stores. My godmother was shopping. People came in and just robbed what they could and ran out. And nobody even calls anybody anymore because the cops can't arrest them. It's not a crime. It is crazy. This is all the end product. Do I think, I mean, the drug war is a little different on these murders and rapes. Do I think they just care about getting conviction? I think that's a big line of the Innocence Project. I haven't seen it yet, that people going, I know this guy is innocent, but I just want a conviction for my career. I don't.
You don't see that?
Who wants to who stays in the prosecutor's office that long?
I mean,
honestly, We have these DAs come and go.
But that's
just
all the
seems to
more
be a
reason
revolving
to
thing.
just convict on any, you know.
It sounds good,
right?
but I mean, I don't know. Maxwell's a special case, so Maxwell's not a good one to pick.
Yeah,
But
right.
I haven't
right.
come across it. I'm not saying it's never happened in the history of the world. I just haven't come across it yet, where I felt like, oh, they're out to get this. You know, there was one case where a guy was set up by the wife's friend, Pam Hupp. And this guy was innocent, and he wrote the Innocent Project, begging them to take his case. They weren't interested, but he got out very quickly. He was able to get out very, very quickly on appeal. So
yeah, well, it sounds to me like the Innocence Project is a very poor representation of people who actually are wrongfully convicted or innocent. If there's that much money involved, there's almost inevitably going to be
just the juvenile to end life without parole for juveniles is $1 billion movement. So this has to be a multi-billion-dollar movement. Yeah. And Republicans and Democrats now have come together on this. They want that wrongful conviction money. And they don't care about these psychopaths being out on the street. And we're going to suffer. And there's something where I'm thinking, I don't know, what do you think of this, Addie? I mean, I'm starting to think that these people who free these killers feel somewhat immune. Like, well, they're not going to come after me. I freed them, so I'm safe. Or I'm living in such a way that I'm not going to be affected. I live in a gated community. I live in a doorman building. I live wherever I live. It's not going to affect me.
Are you asking like what motivates these people, or
no? I'm just wondering if it's a state of mind like we saw in the Maxwell case, like we saw with Epstein, of the elite saying, well, I don't care about killers out on the street. I'm not living with the rest of the people.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that definitely plays a role in it, and especially when you look at like the controlled chaos theory, where it's order out of chaos type of idea that they manufacture. And
that's a very interesting theory. I mean, I haven't been convinced. I love to listen to Mae Brussel. Do you ever listen to Mae Brussel?
No, I don't think so.
You don't know? Oh, okay. It was a serious researcher. She was part of the I Magnum family. Which was like, I don't know what Bergdorf Goodman's back then, but a little not as classy, but very much like these big department clothing stores. And she got the Warren Report, not the edited version, the 1 million volume version, and started reading it and making notes. And she read 14 newspapers a day, and she did a radio show in California called what's it called? Dialogue Conspiracy, and then it changed, but all her work is still free. She never got a dime from any of her research, but it's always, now that she's passed on, her research is so extensive and cross-referenced that seems like every 2 years they're doing some kind of fundraiser to find a home for it, because it's just so hard to house. It's so extensive.
Yeah.
But she had that idea that they were kind of like, she called son of Sam, son of Uncle Sam, that we were sort of creating these killers, these serial killers. I haven't been convinced of that theory, but I'm very interested in it. I'd like to listen to it and think about it. Sure, I know Dave McGowan wrote a book called Programmed to Kill, in that same kind of theory, like in the 70s. We had these kind of celebrity murderers, Ted Bundy, and they were really getting a lot of press.
Was that not the 80s, or was it the 70s?
I thought Ted Bundy started at the end of the 70s and went into the early 80s, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert on Ted Bundy for sure.
Yeah, you're right. The 70s. Yeah, you're right. Anyways, I think we'll have to agree to disagree on the vengeful conviction thing, but comment here: the prosecutor on the Duke lacrosse case wanted a vengeful conviction. He got booted out probably because of Lynn Wood. Actually,
was that Durham, North Carolina? That was
where
Duke. Was the Duke? Where is Duke?
Duke is in Durham. Yes, you got it.
I wonder who that prosecutor was. I know that that's a big celebrated wrongful conviction case, but I know The Greg Taylor case is another one that they rearranged their whole forensic department because, and boy, have people not heard the full story on that. You can hear a little bit of it on interview John Collins, who's a forensic expert. That episode's called The Wrongful Conviction of Forensic Science. And he talks a little bit about the Greg Taylor case in that one. So
Okay.
it's another one it's not what it seems. Very shocking.
And the controlled chaos thing is, I don't know. I mean, like looking at Atlanta, which I've covered in the past, and I'm actually still covering. I was supposed to finish. I'm finishing up an article. It should get out tonight, but I like woke up really early this morning at like 3:30, and then I worked for a few hours, and then I went back to sleep, and I took a nap. And I usually try not to take naps because they just make me groggy the rest of the day. But the controlled chaos thing is, looking at Atlanta, like having murderers out on signature bond. It's like, how in any, on what planet does this make any sense? Like when you have someone
been crazier in Canada. Do you remember that killer nurse? She goes and confesses.
No.
She kills like 1 million people, older people that she takes care of that trust her. And she goes into confesses for hours and hours and hours. and they say, oh, well, it's the holidays. You want to be with your family. Go and spend some time with your family and come back and we'll try you and you'll go to prison. I'm like, you're letting a killer out on the loose. She just will look into your, I guess they had to look into whether her confession was real or not. But boy, just the whole attitude, we got to make sure this killer spends whatever the Thanksgiving equivalent is with her family. They're they're even more crazy than we are over here. So
the Canadians,
they just they're better about. They don't have our First Amendment laws. They're better about keeping killers from the press and really giving them a platform. That I think works a little bit better there. But as far as just a few of the cases, and I don't know if maybe I've gotten the wrong idea, but they totally messed up the Carla Homolka, Paul Bernardo case for sure.
Oh man, those people were messed up. I remember reading about that. I think it wasn't when I was in college. Yeah, they were basically
They found the tapes of her total complicity, and they were like, "Oh, too late now. Sorry, we've already given her the deal with the devil. She has kids and is walking around. I mean, that's crazy.
I mean, that's look."
Killed her own sister. Raped and killed her own sister.
I contend that justice systems in the West, and I don't know what you think about this. I think they are skewed towards being discriminatory towards minorities, but not as much as the media would lead you to believe. I think they are far more sexist than they are even close to being racist. I mean, when you look at that's a perfect example. The Homolka Bernardo case, when you say, I mean, I think if she was a man, she would have been locked up.
Well, definitely, because we're not as strong and we're not as physically as menacing. We do have that one.
I mean, come on, though. That is
kill as much. But they said that they're trying that we used to get bigger advantages and that they've evened that out. So Lord knows. I'm just reading this book right now by Stanton Samenow called Inside the Criminal Mind. And he was saying, oh, they've evened out the way that our justice system, but I still don't think it's even. I think violent women and killer women do have a little advantage in their sex with a jury and the way they appear. But we also don't kill at the same rate. I kind of feel in some way that it balances out. It's not entirely fair. Nothing's entirely fair in life. You just can't even make. I think this obsession with trying to make everything equitable and fair is just.
I don't think those are the same things.
Yeah, true. Great point. Very quick. And no naps for you, Addie. You're the James Brown of independent journalists.
Oh, thank you, Roberta.
You have to keep that title. No naps.
Roberta was very gracious and gave me a praise about the author entry into my book about the Maxwell trial, which is pending Amazon's approval at the moment. So that is something I'm very thankful for, Roberta.
Yeah, William Ramsey was telling me that YouTube came down hard on him and gave him a strike for talking badly about sex traffickers, for cyberbullying people like Maxwell. Did that happen to you, or was that someone else? I thought I had heard.
Yeah, I mean,
they've
cyberbullying, spam, harassment, deceptive practices, you name it. Yeah. And whatever, it's like arbitrary.
Crazy.
It's an interesting question, and literally everybody asks me it. It's like, why? Like, I'm like, what do you mean, why? To me, it's obvious because I'm already at the end state objective, and so I'm like, I'm like, oh, well, like, if you don't know that they're trying to prevent basically the truth from getting out, you'd be like, what's the reason they give? So yeah, it's usually harassment or bullying is the most common one, but I've also gotten deceptive practices. There's certain people that trigger certain excuses, and then certain topics. But yeah, usually harassment is the most oft used excuse given by Google.
Do you feel that we're in an age where that the goal is to normalize this and to normalize sort of pedophilia, or normalize sex? I mean, you always hear don't slut shame, sex positive, sex work. Now nobody even says prostitution anymore. I'm the last person to call it prostitution. They're calling it sex work. Like, oh, I'll just go to my little job. It's bizarre. I mean, what do you think? Or do you think that the elite? Is it a small group, a big group? Do you think it's widely accepted among the 1%?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you could look at it through like a biblical sense of like Babylon and like the descent into that, or you could look at it through a controlling perspective. I don't know. I mean, it seems to me to be an obvious push when you look at like the library drag queen storytelling or whatever that was about. That was very inappropriate, to say the least.
It's still going on. Brooklyn Public Library is still doing it. They're still doing it, as far as I know. I don't know with COVID now. I think everything took a break, but I think I saw an ad for a virtual one. It's just, and the way they're transing kids and sexualizing kids, it's very odd. And if you speak out about that, you'll get banned. And
then there's the perspective too I wanted to add of like the fall of Rome and the parallels. I'm thinking of a documentary called The Four Horsemen by this guy Ross Ashcroft from the UK, where he talks about the obsession with sex, basically, and it being one of the parallel characteristics that he sees between our society and Rome before it fell. And the other was like an undisciplined, overexpanded military, inflationary, money inflated, and then I think it was one other. I can't recall. But that was another thing I wanted to add with regards to the kind of sexualization trope in the media being so prevalent.
Well, I mean, Gloria Steinem is all pro all this stuff. She's supposed to be the big feminist or whatever. I mean, she has a CIA background. I don't know if you've looked into her. And
no, I'm not too familiar. I mean,
basically, they took feminism and made it not feminist.
What do you mean by that?
Sex work, sexualizing yourself, you hair and makeup, appearance is just like, oh, you can be a bad bitch. I mean, I don't know how else to kind of put it. The dumbest feminism in the world. They dumbed it down to the dumbest level. Like, you can dress in a full cat suit and high heels and be kicking ass. It's basically just being aggressive and tough and sexualizing yourself. I mean, I don't know.
To me, I describe it as just acting like a man, and honestly, penis envy. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, acting like a man, but at this while dressing like a hooker.
Right. I mean, I don't know if I think I've told you this on off air. I don't know if I told you on air, but it just like it was like graduation week in college, and like there's a group of like university students. They're all like white girls. They're talking about sex, and like it was so crass and objectifying of their partners, which happened to be male as far as I can tell. I'm not really sure, but yeah, it was weird. It was like they were like 17-year-old guys in a basement drinking together, talking about women and like, bragging about things and exaggerating and being sexist. But they were like in public, and there was like children and old people walking around, and it's like, what the hell is going on?
It's disgusting. I know. And then you feel like a prude. Then they go, "Oh, what's wrong with you, prude?"
Yeah,
you don't want to hear about my,
you're misogynist. Like, it's like like literally my grandma was like sitting like across the table, and I was like,
oh, it's just the values are so all. I just always feel like every day, like the future looks really bleak right now if we don't turn it around radically. I mean, between the kids and the pronouns,
you gotta laugh or you're gonna cry. I don't know.
This fragility, everything offends. It's all about feelings, and I grew up. My parents were like tough. Life isn't fair. Toughen up. What's wrong with you? I grew up in that kind of thing. Maybe my parents' generation went too far with it. I don't think so. I think it was a great gift, and I also think learning to handle discomfort is a great gift.
Yeah,
and these kids aren't getting that lesson at all, and I don't know how any personal growth or how they learn anything, and what these schools are teaching. Gosh, God knows, it's frightening.
Yeah, it's crazy. And let's pivot to Maxwell. I wanted to.
The last 9 minutes, the last 8 minutes, right? We got.
I wanted to skip to the end here with Julie K. Brown, who is being sued by Haley Robson and Courtney Wild. She attended the trial along with us. She was one of the chosen ones who got to go into the courtroom with Ghislaine Maxwell. I was denied on more than one occasion entrance into either the courthouse or the room itself. And what do you think about Julie K. Brown getting sued?
Well, what they're alleging, it's going to be it's a civil suit, and what they're alleging is that Julie K. Brown threatened these Maxwell Epstein survivors, and when they didn't want to give her an interview, she told one of them, I can't remember if it was Courtney. Was that Courtney Wild? Did she tell you'll be sorry, you'll regret it? And then she made one of them look like a mini Maxwell in the book. So it seems like the way the lawsuit is described, it sounds like she threatened and she followed through with her threat that this was what she got for not participating. And it's kind of interesting because you can tell she's scrappy. Like she has that energy. I mean, that's the nicest way I can put it.
I think she was avoiding me. I think she was avoiding me at the trial. She seemed to be avoiding me. I don't know. She was standing with two other people, and people that, as far as I could tell, very much wanted to be on her good side. And one of them, I was like, I wasn't expecting it, but I was like almost polite courtesy to be like, because of what had happened in the past, I thought I was going to be introduced to this person.
They just let you stand there the whole time.
Yeah, it was weird, and I was like, I was waiting for a beat. I was waiting for a beat to like enter in, but they were so closed off, and I was like, I don't know, man. It seems like she's like not trying to interact with me. I don't know. I would imagine she knows who I am, but I you never know. And
well, she did not take to me on site.
I heard about
everybody
that.
knows that story, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't drawn to her, and I didn't really care for her all that much.
The woman from NPR was reading her book, I remember, and it was weird. I saw. Do you remember that? Like Scott Sharp, the true crime loser, he was there on the first day, but then he wasn't there at all the rest
I didn't see him again.
He left. He didn't even get in. He goes, I have to go take care of my puppy. I went with him to the bail hearing. So we both came really early because we thought it was going to be packed. So we got to know each other a little bit from that. So I saw him on the first day and he goes, I'm leaving. And that seemed like, to me, it was like one of those things where, you ever had a friend when you're in elementary school who goes home sick or gets out of some kind of really difficult test or something? I've never been so envious. That first day was horrendous. Hours of waiting in line in the cold.
I left
now,
too. I have to admit
part
it.
of waiting in
I
line.
admit it in my book. I left that day. It was about 1:30 or 2:30. I can't remember. And I saw Liz Stein in the because she was right behind me, and I was like, "How are you not in the courtroom yet? Or in the overflow room?" And she has a pacemaker, so she had to get like physically screened by a female security officer. And I tapped out. I was like, man, I actually did have stuff to do though. So, I mean, at the same time, I do
wanted
regret
to.
it.
I was with a journalist from The Wire, and she was a really lovely woman, and just hanging out. If I had not been hanging out with her, I probably would have. I think it would have been more likely that I would have left. But
you know what? A big reason I left, which I guess I haven't really realized or admitted, was this woman from. She's I think local New York, who covers New York beat for like a Spanish speaking European outlet, and I wasn't even talking to her. I was talking to this older black lady who wasn't even a reporter or journalist. She just likes to attend trials. She would attend the El Chapo trial, like all the big trials. She would like to attend. Really interesting lady. I didn't see her again, unfortunately, though, after that first day, and we were just talking and. This reporter overheard me and like interjected, and I was like, I think she felt I was like being an apologist for like Epstein and Maxwell and these people, and I was just like making the point that there's a difference between a 24-year-old and a 14-year-old. I think is a big difference.
I think that's a fair point. No,
and she thought I was like, I don't know what she thought I was being, like a apologist, I guess I would say. But and because of that, I was like the energy was so negative. And then like the court officers, they came over twice and they got like they were telling us to stay 6 feet apart, and they got up right to me, and I knew it was because
they were very cranky. The whole court that was just a mess. That whole trial, the way it ended up with what you were talking about, the elite, those who could pay could get in, those who were important, and the rest of us. We're in the peanut gallery.
I will say, even this is my only criticism of Matthew Russell Lee, I gotta say, and the reason I say this honestly is because someone else complimented him, and I was like, well, yeah, but we also didn't get to use our laptops in court. That is a huge advantage. You can literally type it stream of consciousness what you're hearing, and I was like, I still think he was probably the best if you had to pick an MVP for who covered it. But at the same time, it's like that's accreditation, So if anything, I'll be like, okay, I'm the best non-accredited person to cover the trial. But
because he got to go to the press room and bring his laptop. Is that what you?
Oh yeah,
that's what
it was him, and then what's his name? Adam Klasfeld.
He's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was it. As far as the live tweeting stuff. I mean, that's accreditation. Yeah, maybe they're not mainstream, certainly not Matthew Russell Lee, but they're still accredited and have like that privilege that you and I do not have.
Is that the same thing you need to go? Because do you need just like a business card, or do you need your fingerprints taken? That whole thing. Do you have to be in-house press, or do you know what you have to do to get into that room?
He wasn't very clear about it, but as far as if you aren't those guys and don't have that accreditation, I mean, as we've discovered, they can just turn you away because they don't like the color of your T-shirt, or because you're not tall enough, or because
it was awful. It was
awful. Yeah, it was
awful.
It was completely arbitrary. I think power abuse.
Terribly done. Absolutely terribly done. And I will agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
Yeah.
And we should be encouraging more people to go to trials, not making it harder. not making it like, oh, it's open, but you have to go through. I mean, that really felt like that on the first day, was trying to discourage people. Like, we'll let you freeze outside for 5 hours. It was so cold. Then we'll take you in,
That's
and
what I
then we'll
thought.
make you
I remember we
wait a
discussed
couple
that.
more
Yeah.
hours in the lobby. Then, be sure. Then we'll take a break and make you come back to that same spot. I mean, it was just hours and hours of waiting.
Yeah,
It
I
was
remember
crazy.
discussing that idea. It almost, like you said, seemed like they were trying to make it like discourage people, like make it, it's like this, it's going to be like this every day. You're going to wait on the cold for 2 hours, and it's just going to be horrendous. And it worked. I honestly think it worked. Like,
well, if that woman never came, maybe she went to a different overflow room, but
I
she
never
never
saw her
came
again.
back, and she's
I
a
never saw
trial.
her again.
It's hard to keep a trial junkie away from. I mean, they call them, we're called
Yeah.
trial junkies for a reason, because it's really. I had to work this week. I got sick, and then I had to work a ton, so I couldn't go to the Sarah Palin trial. When people bring it up to me, I'm like, oh, it's just like so painful. I really wanted to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully we can
sometimes
meet
life-
up when I'm in New York again, Roberta.
Love
But
to.
before we wrap up, I wanted to get your take on the Prince Andrew, Virginia Giuffre civil suit. What are your thoughts on that? Obviously, we got Maxwell sentencing on the 28th. Jurygate is ongoing. Scotty David, we got the defense wanting everything to be under seal. The government, for once, is saying no, this should not be under seal. Which is kind of surprising because they've been so secretive. In fact, more secretive than the defense was ever during the trial, I would say. So obviously it's because of the way the momentum, I think, has been.
That's right.
Kind of went
because and it's better to be more conservative in the beginning, so they can't say, well, we couldn't get a fair trial. Nothing was sealed up, blah, blah, blah. It's better in some ways for the prosecution to do things. Maura Penza, who prosecuted Keith Raniere and the NXIVM crew, has wrote a great tweet basically saying that they don't really have she feels that they don't have a snowball's chance in hell of winning this appeal. Back to Prince Andrew. You saw what cross-examination is, which is essentially a deposition. He has to take the stand. That's what a deposition is. You're under oath. You're just not in a courtroom. Usually you're in some kind of
conference room, right?
Conference room. Thank you. I was trying to think of the word. A round table that would just act it out for you. And we saw how he did on the BBC interview where he thought he aced it. He is screwed. He is so screwed. The only thing he can do is take the fifth like Jeffrey Epstein and say it's an admission of innocence. That's the only thing he can do. If he starts answering these questions. And he also said in that interview, my mom pointed out, I just did an interview with my mom about Prince Andrew, and she pointed out that he said in that interview that Maxwell was his friend, not Epstein. But now Maxwell is a convicted sex trafficker, much more than what Epstein ever was. Wrong choice, dude. Again, I hope Virginia Roberts Giuffre is having a glass of champagne every night and enjoying it, and he's going down, and he deserves it. He's a horrible, disgusting human being, and I'm delighting in seeing him go down.
Yeah.
Is that terrible to have Schadenfreude? But sorry, dude. No, you're yelling at your maid about the way she closed the curtains. Sorry, don't have too much.
Yeah.
Too much. Anyway, do you have to go now, or do we?
No, I got a few more minutes. We can go
Okay.
a few more minutes. Yeah, I wanted to be respectful of your time too, Roberta. But yeah, I got to say, it does feel good to see a royal be going down like that. Even if it is kind of the stooge of the family a bit. But yeah,
They took away his titles. He can no longer be called His Royal Highness, which apparently, according to my mom, who knows all things royal, says that really gets in their craw when they can't be called His Royal Highness.
Wow.
So.
Wow. Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And
nobody said, what's interesting also? Nobody came forward about that Pizza Express sighting. Nobody saw him in Pizza Express. And
he's lying.
That day.
Yeah,
I know
lying.
he is.
Yeah,
but isn't it funny that he thought that excuse that he aced it? Nobody's come forward.
Sean Atwood actually went to that Pizza Express in Woking.
Oh, that's funny.
And tried to.
What did they say?
Employees.
They were like, "We didn't see him. We've never seen a royal here."
I think they did
say?
the no comment routine. I'm pretty sure, if I recall. But
Oh, that's unfortunate.
he also went to Maxwell's townhouse there, so you got to give props for
Oh,
going there, I think.
definitely. That's inventive and smart and fun.
Yeah, yeah, and someone, speaking of that, people actually, I can't remember who it was. Somebody mentioned the bartender or the bar owner across the way, I think, from Maxwell's townhouse there in London, in the trial or during the course of the trial.
That's right. They said
remember who it was.
like that. Yeah, wasn't it a defense witness? They said, "Oh, there's that bar across the way. It's like the Ram something or some kind of like some name like that."
I don't know if it was in court, but I
that?
thought I heard a reporter mention it outside of court.
I'd have to look at my notes because I
Yeah.
kept writing all the time just to not fall asleep sometimes, and also to try to remember everything. Everything seems to go by so fast in court. Yeah, I remember that. They brought it up. I thought it was something about her townhouse, and I thought it was Bobby Sternheim who mentioned that it's across from a bar. But I can't remember who the witness was. I'd have to look at my notes.
Yeah, yeah.
A pub or a bar or something. Yeah.
Man, Bobby Sternheim. I gotta say, she's the most confident. At least, I don't know. Her body language was like, it was almost haughty, but it wasn't quite. It was like, I don't know. It was like overconfident.
She dresses like she's stuck in the 90s. These long coats.
Yeah.
Kind of like what is it like Showtime at the Apollo? Kind of like these long, almost boy band jackets, and
she would like strut,
and strut, and these fancy shoes that look like Prada loafers.
She knew she was like,
loafers. She's a good lawyer. She is a good lawyer. Almost every objection she got sustained. She is a good. I didn't think her opening statement was all that great, but she didn't have much to work with. But boy, when she really got into she can think of anything to object object and get it met, and it's amazing. And get it sustained is what I really mean. But
yeah. And then as far as the Roberts or the Giuffre Andrews suit, I think they have until the 14th to say who they want to depose. Which, as far as I know, for Roberts, it'll be David Boies and then Sarah McCauley, who we actually saw at the trial. I don't know if you saw her, but I saw her one day. I think she was there. She might have been there 2 days, but I didn't see her one day. And then David Boies, and then I've heard Sarah Ferguson, and then the children, because of the fact he mentioned them in that BBC interview, could be deposed, as well as the former equerry, Robert Olney, basically like a orderly or assistant of some sort, I think, formerly for Prince Andrew.
He is up a creek. That's why they're all jumping ship, and they're like, "Don't know you, dude. Never knew you." He is in trouble, big trouble. I thought he would never answer this and just get a forfeit judgment and just not pay it. That's what I thought. Never set foot in America. And I think it's interesting that he's going to do this deposition in London, which to me means I'm not going to set foot in America. I don't want the FBI to talk to me about Epstein or Maxwell and I think he may be afraid of the public. The public's still very angry with him.
Yeah.
They don't like him here. I don't think, and I think also they try to distract with Meghan Markle and Harry. I don't think they're all that popular here anymore either. So we're not really in love with the royals right now.
Yeah. I mean, I hope they crash and burn, and that would be fine with me. But
except the corgis can live. The corgis can live in the palace or whatever. Make it a public park. I just say get rid of the whole mark. Well, I grew up with corgi. My mom, we always had corgis, so I have a soft spot for the corgis. They may be smarter than Prince Andrew.
You could be right there. And I can't remember the name of the town, but there was a town in England, and there's a road or drive called Prince Andrew Road or Prince Andrew Drive, or something like that. And they want to get it changed. The residents are demanding that it get changed because of his connection to Mr. Epstein, which is understandable.
You saw my building. It used to have a big Trump sign out in front of it, and they took it down when when Trump won the election. I was like, I don't care whether his name is on this building or not. He doesn't own it anymore, but whatever.
Sure. Well, hopefully we can do this again in person when I'm in New York soon. Here,
I can't
Roberta.
wait to see you.
Can we hang out? Do you have time to have
Definitely.
fun, or can we
Yeah, I'll
just
have to
time
think
to
of
work?
something fun to do. It's really warmed up too, so
Okay.
good time
Oh,
to
that's
come
great.
back to New York.
That's great.
Yeah, you've had perfect
Yeah,
timing.
I
You got
guess.
away for
I
the
guess.
bitter cold.
I'd
And we
prefer
got to
to stay
celebrate
in
your
Florida,
birthday
to be
too.
honest. Oh yeah, it is coming. Oh my god, you're embarrassing me, Roberta. Where can people find your work and support you?
I'm on iTunes. Please leave me a 5-star review if you like my work. And get me above get me above a C plus rating, and from all the angry people. And also YouTube, anywhere where podcasts are, and I also do live shows on YouTube and anywhere, Twitter, Roberta Glass Pod. Follow me.
Yep. Yeah. And
Facebook.
those links.
I have a Facebook group, Roberta Glass True Crime Report Facebook group.
Oh, you do?
Addie,
Okay, I'll add that one. I'll add that one.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
come join the discussion. The Facebook group. It's a nice group of people.
I'm gonna be.
Addie.
I won't mention it. Well, I guess I'll mention it. I worked in the Delphi case last year, so I'm returning it to it this year. At some point, I don't know when. So, yeah, I'll try to pitch into the chat there. But those links, if not already in the description, will be when I add them. I know her Twitter is, and then her YouTube as well, I think. So, that being said, I still got to give a 5-star review on the iTunes. So. And if people want to support myself, those links are also in the show notes. Thanks to the audience for tuning in. Stay frosty, folks, and we will see everybody next time.